I'm hoping now to crack on with some more videos in the near future. Starting very soon, because two things. Firstly, I've got a holiday coming up, and I should be able to do a lot more editing, recording and drafting during that time, and hence hopefully more uploading. But also I found some good software for my new phone, so I can do some short form edits, making it quicker and easier for me to do videos like this, as well as others I can just simply do a once over, very quick spiel online. Unpolished, limited rehearsal, no essay, just something nice and quick. However, I know many people might be suggesting I use something like an AI to speed things up. And whilst I like that idea to ease things, this does get me onto a rather interesting topic when it comes to AI. I know many channels have discussed it, the pros and cons and so forth, but I think there are a couple of dangers that we need to address. Many people talk about the creation aspect, that we'll become less creative because we rely more on AI to do that, which is true. And I think it leads into something else that I will talk about in a moment. But I think one of the main dangers is actually something that, well, is almost praised about AI, praised about the new software, the new updates we're getting. And that's linked to deep fakes. Now, deep fakes are when you take, say, the image of someone and let them, using AI software, to take snippets of vocal patterns, of speech patterns and so forth, to enable you to basically tell the world anything via that person without their consent and without their knowledge. Furthermore, if that person is highly influential, it can not only damage their reputation, but also be incredibly dangerous to those that follow them religiously. Imagine, if you will, former President Donald Trump saying things that actually get him the presidency again, and, more than likely, saying something later on that incites people to war. That is something that is incredibly dangerous. Who knows? There are people out there who could do that to their enemies, changing the landscape of war from conventional battlefields, from the urban warfare that we've been seeing all across the Ukraine, all the way onto the Cybers network. Those are the real dangers. I'm not talking about robot drones doing all the attacking, no. We're not talking Skynet, we're not talking Space Odyssey 2000 or whatever it's called. We're not talking about all the conventional terrifying robot apocalypses. Or apocalypse, maybe. We're talking real dangers where we don't know if we're talking to a real person or a robot. That is way too dangerous. That opens up the world of scamming as well. Someone that you've spoken to through video calls, through voice calls, that is now going to be much, much harder to judge. And whilst I'm the sort of person that picks out those little tidbits, those little things that show it's clearly not a real person speaking, not a real person on the image, on the video, it's something I'm not willing to share. Not because I don't want people to know this, I do, but you put it out on the internet, who's going to see them? But the scammers who will update the software to make it harder to spot those telltales, or even remove them entirely. You could say it's like the Enigma code. You could save lots of people, well, you could save a handful of people very quickly, a handful of very important people very quickly, but then you get sent back to square one because you don't know how they'll respond. Well, you probably do know. They're going to change it, they're going to improve it, they're going to make it much harder. That, in my opinion, is the real danger of AI. Other dangers are more, well, another problem is down to practicality, down to skills, down to uses. But that is how technology alters over time, and really how I think technology weakens us as a species, at least in terms of survival. Strengthens us in terms of productivity, in terms of comfort of living and so forth. I mean, I'm able to transport a huge amount of stuff in the back of my van over long distances to many people through the use of, well, firstly, internal combustion engines, steel making the vehicle, or the dials allowing me to tell how much fuel I've got, what speed I'm going, and so forth. A radio to keep myself entertained. An app to guide me on the route and even do all the scanning for me, so I don't have to worry about it at all, even though I have to do half the organising myself. Certainly when it comes to sorting out my parcels. But here's the thing. With those skills that get given to AI, they may seem humdrum, but they're also skills that help to survive. These days, we don't think about how much effort it's going to take to heat the house. We just turn on the thermostat. We just crank up the boiler. When less than, say, I think it's less than 30 years ago, actually, we had a gas boiler, so we had to turn the boiler on. In my dad's youth, they would have to stoke the boiler. Maybe a coal boiler. Maybe an oil boiler, stuff like that. All things that require, if not a true skill, but at least the knowledge, the know-how. I remember discussing this with someone who actually works in that sort of area, and he said that sooner or later there's going to be some software whose job it is to basically do coding, and his son is very into coding and that sort of thing. I've never understood coding, to be honest. It's completely alien to me. But that's because my interests lie in the older stuff, such as blacksmithing, such as horsemanship, such as swordsmanship. All things that have been lost to time. Granted, most of those things have either been given to other people to do or have been made obsolete due to the fact we have professionals to do them or have progressed technology. But there's still things that will be useful should things go wrong. Granted, that does sound survivalist, that does sound disastrous, that does sound like I'm preparing for an apocalypse. And I am one of those people who do believe that the next solar flare could crash the internet. Hence why I'd rather store all of my stuff on items I can keep on hard drives. Because hard drives you can shield a bit more. Things up in the cloud will quite easily get wiped out. Some people might also say that in the future we'll have robots doing pretty much everything for us, and I also think that's a danger. Not because of an eventual robot uprising, no. Because those skills will eventually be lost. You hear constantly about how people grow up with servants, and then when they have to get rid of their servants, or for some reason they have to do things on their own, they are almost completely unable to do stuff. It's often a stereotype of the posh relying on other people to do things for them, but it can be the truth sometimes. And who's to say, maybe one day we'll actually have to start giving robots rights, which is a completely different field of thought and goes into the realms of slavery. Because technically we made them, we created them to do our bidding, so that's their whole purpose. But the moment we give them sentience and stuff like that, so they can actually talk to us, express opinions and whatnot, that is when we have to start considering their rights. However, I have a feeling that starts getting to something completely different. Naturally, there is abuse that happens in all manner of work. You get people looking down on bin men, you get people looking down on delivery drivers, taxi drivers, all manner of people doing a low-skill job. And of course there's the classic racism, sexism, whatever. Basically, there's something that someone can do to make someone feel small. If they're inclined to do so, they will. And that leads into humanistic, or what's it called? Pro-humanism, yes. Pro-humanism. Essentially, humans being better than all other forms of intelligence. That's something that crops up constantly in all manner of science fiction, fantasy, all that sort of thing. It's almost implicit in the narrative of some books because, well, we focus on the humans, therefore we need more humans in that world. It's very rare they're going to be the minority. But that leads us into slavery again. And I'm pretty sure many people will point out that the Bible seems to condone slavery. And I would say this. Technically, yes, but it's nowhere near as bad as people are thinking. You may say, well, it says, I think in Leviticus and Deuteronomy, that you can only take your slaves from other tribes. And I'll say this, yes, but if you read on, you can see that they say you have to only keep your slaves for 7 years. After 7 years, I think it's a maximum of 7 years, I think there's the Jubilee. It's either an event where everyone has to do it, or everyone who's kept them for 7 years has to do it. Either way, after a maximum of 7 years of servitude, you may call it slavery, I think more of indentured servitude, they have to be released. they have to be set free. And when they're set free, they are citizens of Israel. They are members of that tribe. And it clearly says you can't make slaves of your own people. So you are bringing someone into your culture. You are showing them what it means to be in the culture whilst they are serving you, and then you release them into that culture. Yes, it's also saying to the servants, the slaves, or whatever, no matter how harsh, perverse, or whatever your master may be, bide your time, because soon you'll be a citizen of Israel, and they can no longer harm you. 7 years seems like a very long time, and it certainly will be for a slave. There's no denying that. 6 months can seem a long time, let alone 7 years. But considering the fact that some cultures at the time made slaves of their own people, and for that matter, did not have any cultural reason to release them at any given time, they could basically work them to death. So, whilst Israel did have slaves, their laws slowly worked towards taking people out of slavery, taking slaves from other tribes, educating them about Israel and their customs during their time as slaves to Israel, and then releasing them as citizens of Israel. Where they have no reason to become slaves again. May seem harsh at first, but it works. So whilst this is a bit of a ramble, going from the topic of my videos to how I could use AI, how AI is a danger, to how robots will eventually become servants, and how the slaves of Israel weren't going to be slaves forever. These are the sort of videos that work for me. Sort of how conversations work. You go from one topic to another. And unlike most videos, this one should hopefully be coming out some point in the next 24 hours. Whereas normally they'd just stay on my phone or stay on my hard drive until I get a spare weekend to sit down at my computer and tap them out. This is on my phone. I don't need to worry about transferring it over to my computer, which takes hours. I don't need to worry about doing the editing, which is really annoying. This, I can simply trim, upload, bang, it's out. I can't see what's going on. There we go. Thank you, lorry driver. So just remember, I think in general, the thing I can say is video is about being aware of things, both good and bad, that you didn't think of. Examine everything about it, not just the things that you understand, and not just how you understand them. There are positives and negatives, but you can't be a judge of it if you refuse either of them. I hope to see you very soon, and a lot more often.